Hey guys, welcome back to Meat Hacks Volume 3. Today we're going to be talking about dry aging beef at home, which you can totally do. Today we're going to dry age this entire rib roast, so it's the ribeye and it's bone in. And a few things when you go and find this at your local market or the cash and carry or wherever you want. Certainly you want to work with the highest grade quality meat that you can, but if you don't, it's still going to be pretty darn good when you're done. When you're looking at the piece of meat, when you're looking at the roast, you want to look for one that has a solid fat cap, okay? Oftentimes when you're looking down at the Select or some of the lesser quality meats, you'll get huge gashes in the fat cap. You don't really want it for what we're trying to accomplish. And you also want the bone in, okay? You want to keep that bone in so that the meat itself is separated, or rather is protected from the outside husk, from the fat cap and the bone, so that the only actual meat that gets exposed is this round here. So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to drain this, get it out, and I'll show you how to prepare that. Often when you're cutting in the bag, you're going to find that there's blood. The blood is actually also a brine. There is a brine that is in the bag, generally keeping it tender, as well as a bit of a preservative. And so cut along the ribs to open the bag and let it drain out. Look for any huge gashes. And then you're going to want to wash this brine off. So when the cats hop on the counter, you're going to want to make sure that they get off the counter. And this is funny every time I see that. Rinse off the brine, and we're going to dry that off here in a moment. So when we're preparing this roast, there's a couple of things that we're going to do. First off, we want to avoid as many crevices as possible. Crevices are the enemy when it comes to dry aging at home. Since we don't really have a really strong controlled environment for humidity, we're basically going to do our best, and our best is pretty much going to be good enough for what we're trying to accomplish. However, we want to avoid crevices and bunches of meat that aren't self-contained, because in those crevices, as long as you have those deep crevices, the arid atmosphere that we're going to try to accomplish locally is not really going to do a lot of good, and that's where you're going to start to get some actual and real decay, because the kind of decay that we're going to go for is kind of a controlled decay that changes the protein structure but doesn't introduce any of the rancid decay that definitely is not good for human people. So what I do is, and anything hanging off, I'm going to trim off, and I'm going to trim it in such a way that it doesn't necessarily leave a crevice. And then you're going to need a couple of really clean bar towels or whatever, and those are obviously going to get washed right away. But the thing that we're going to do is we're going to dry the outside as much as possible. So let's inspect the rest of the roast, make sure we don't have any huge crevices. This one looks pretty good. That's kind of a crevice, but not really. That'll be all right. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to dry the outside of this roast as much as possible. And the reason that we want to do that is we want to start the dry aging process as soon as possible. Because like I said, we're going to create a localized arid environment that's going to suck the moisture out of the roast. And how we're going to do that is we're going to use salt, and the salt is actually going to suck that moisture out, and then we're going to put some cheesecloth or some tight knit cloth over the roast itself, and that will create a localized arid environment, but the salt isn't actually going to touch the roast. So what we need to do is we need to create as dry a surface as possible to get it started. So we're going to take a clean bar cloth, and we're going to start to dry and press as much as possible. Nice and thick. It's going to be nice. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep the pan. This is a 22-inch catering pan. And what I have is I've got these cookie trays or these drying trays, and I get 3 of them. There's lots of ways you can do this. You can figure it out on your own. But I've got 3 trays, and basically I'm going to set them like that, and that's actually going to lift it up above the salt itself. And depending upon how much salt you have in there, you might do it a little closer or a little bit further away. For as much salt as I'm putting in today, I'll probably only put in 2 for now, and I'll put in maybe a little bit more salt later. So you're going to take your salt, and I'm using kosher salt, I'm using coarse kosher salt, and you're actually going to, and I'm going to rip this open actually if I can. I'm going to use all of it. You're going to layer the bed with salt. And then you're going to go ahead and put in those racks. Now, as you can see, this actually keeps the roast above the salt without touching it, because we actually don't want to salt the meat. All we want to do is allow that salt to suck the moisture out of the air and out of the environment. So then you're going to take your roast and you're going to put it fat cap up. That's pretty important. Place it fat cap up, and let me grab a cheesecloth. Okay, now that you have your cheesecloth, go ahead and lay it over. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of a thicker cloth also on top of it. But again, we're creating that localized environment, right? That localized arid environment. And then all you have to do is actually put it in your fridge and then open up your fridge as little as possible. That's kind of the hard part, depending upon how busy your family is. But if you have an extra fridge, great, use it. If you're going away on vacation, great, use it. But you want to put it in your fridge and you don't want to touch it for some time. So let's do that. Keep your roast in your fridge as long as you want. I would recommend between 28 and 35 days. Anything more than that, and you're going to start to get a little bit too much reduction on your meat, and anything less, you're not going to get the kind of flavor compacted profile that you might be looking for. We'll do a follow-up video in about 30 days and see how this turns out. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate it. It's the first time I've said thank you. Go ahead and leave a comment if you like or don't. I kind of don't care. Either way, I'll see you on the other side, and let me show you a picture of what my steaks look like that have been dry aged for 30 days. They're so good. All right, take care, peace, have hope.